Okay, so this is how you impress a Mediana group. You Cosmo Plume, you take out all the slimes, you take out the boss and yourself in the process. It's very, very cool. Except for when you kill yourself and leave the boss up. Hey everybody, welcome back to another War of the Visions video. Today we're going to be talking about the new Chocolate Flan Raid. This is something I wanted to preview a bit, but because of my filming schedule, I wasn't able to do that. I can't just film every day where I am, so I'm going to instead talk about my thoughts on the raid, because I think that it's really affected me in a good way. I've learned more about the game, I've learned more about my own team and optimizing my team, and I think that's really cool. So I want to share those thoughts with you, so let's get into it. Let's start by talking about my raid experience in general. I started off soloing as many of my own raids as I could, and I just did that with my regular party and I autoed it. And then at a certain point I had to start manually playing the raid, and I would just go join some low-level multis as well, and eventually got into those mid-level. I didn't really know much, so I didn't want to go join some super high raid and then, you know, mess up. And then finally it ended with me having to solo stuff in about the 40-50 level range with my party, but I really had to optimize my party in order to win every single encounter. And I ended up taking a look at a lot of stuff that I normally don't look at. So now I'm finally at this point where I am doing all of my raids in Mediana groups with my Mediana, and that has been super successful so far. I also join level 61 and up Mediana parties because I need those Void Mega Crysts so I can craft some rings. I'm not going for a +5 or anything. If anything, I'm going for maybe like just a 0 or a +1, but that's kind of where my progress is with the raid right now. And the cool thing about this raid is that you can just do it solo. You can just play if you want. You can play it and do it in 2 tries with your solo team, and I certainly have to. I don't have any sort of natural synergy. I don't have enough to make a slashing team. I don't have enough to make a magic team or anything like that. So I don't have any chains going on by myself like some people might, and I can just beat them in 2 tries, which only costs you 1 orb, and that's fine because they're really just hucking orbs at us. They're giving us a lot, so it's not a really big deal for me to use them. So if I want to just kind of have a chiller experience playing by myself, I know some people don't want to get on multiplayer, then that's fine. You can do that. You don't have to actually play with other people if you don't want to. It's going to be much faster, and you'll be able to eventually get much higher that way. You will tap out at a certain point playing solo, but I think that's just important to note for the casual player, that there's so many different ways to do this raid, and it does not necessarily mean playing in a group of 4, doing your perfect Mediana combos with someone using D-Shell and someone using the special at the proper time and all of that stuff. So there were a lot of things that I changed in order to manually optimize my team. I started thinking more about my vision cards, and something I realized was that my vision cards were pretty biased towards 1 or 2 units in my party, or they were just the vision cards that I used while farming, and I kind of just copied them over, and I wasn't thinking as much as I did in PvP about where to put them and which ones to use. So I just kind of realized that they're not one size fits all. So some of the things I ended up changing was I put my Ryu, I gave him Projectile Up, the King Curry card. I gave Mediana a Magic Up card, the little Lila one, and that's one I actually hadn't built. I didn't have a Magic Up card for a party, and that actually helped my Rams out. And as soon as I did that, I started hitting more damage, and it was easier to clear. And I also just started looking at the stats on my card, because, for example, I was giving Mediana the Ramza card in multiplayer, and that's going to be okay because it's going to speed up everybody else, and I want to contribute to the party. But the magic that you get on that card, the actual stat, is quite low, and that's not going to help and with her spells. And then I realized that's the same thing for Ramza, and even though Ramza will benefit from the slash attack up on the personal part, then it's still not necessarily the best card to be giving him. So some cards that I was kind of just putting around, I have a lot more of a tight lid on what I'm leveling, what characters I'm equipping it to, and that's kind of what I ended up doing. I also started thinking about the starting positions I should be putting my characters in. I started thinking about which units I should use. So at first I was using Mont, Ramza, Ryu, and Mediana. And Mediana and Ryu are strong against the boss, so that was going well. Ramza was just very powerful, and Mont was just okay, but he's a slasher, so he kind of chained with Ramza a little bit, and I realized that wasn't working so well, so I switched in Phoebe, and that was going okay. So Quicken was really useful at times, but then I also learned that if you try to quicken a mage and they're already casting, it doesn't really do anything, because if they get their turn before their cast finishes, then they will just not be able to do anything with that turn, or it will reset the cast, so you can't like double cast or anything. So I realized that Quicken is actually much better with slashing chains than it is with magic chains. So that was something that I had to experiment to learn more about the intricacies of using something like that. I also started thinking about things like, what skills am I going to use? How much AP do they cost? How am I generating AP? Where am I attacking from? So things like making sure to go around the side, just not being lazy, getting that extra AP. Or maybe I can use Shimmering Blade a bunch of turns in a row rather than one Banishka blade, and I would compare the damage between them and see which one was more optimal. And even just moving my units around, if depending on where I moved Ryu each fight, that would actually affect where the Chocolate Flan ended up. And sometimes he'd go all the way around the map if I was just moving around randomly, and other times I could kind of corral him but not make him use his AoE. So there's lots of different ways that I started thinking about the game, and overall that's awesome, because we've been playing this game for months now, and we've had a lot of PvE content, and the Iron Giant was definitely tougher. It was hard to get those achievements. That was something that was welcome, and it made us think a little bit more. But now we've got something that is infinitely harder, because it keeps scaling over and over, and if you're going to do it solo, then you really need to put a lot of thought into it, and eventually you are going to have to go multiplayer. But that has caused me to think more about my game. It's making me play manually, and that's all very welcome, and it's got me very, very pumped for the tower, because I want to put these units to use there now. So I'm super psyched about this raid, and I can't wait for future raids, and it makes me think about which units I'm going to build in the future now, because we know what the raids are going to be, and if you can build a solo team that can do a raid very well, that's going to save you a lot of time in the early game, just racking up your levels, getting a bunch of rewards, and then taking the high level raids to multiplayer to get all those bonuses. So the final thing that I want to talk about is multiplayer, and this has definitely been a very interesting multiplayer experience. I've learned again a lot about how to play multiplayer, and there's a lot of things that I've thought about in how can I help my teammates. So which vision cards can I offer if people already have Ramu and the Masherie card? I don't have either of those. What can I give them? Which skills should I be using to sync up? We learned all about chains, and at the very beginning of the weekend we saw there were people that were using flare all the time. There were people that were all over the place, moving every turn, wasting their CT. There's still a little bit of that. There was people doing all sorts of things that didn't really fit in with your party and weren't optimal, and some people are learning on Reddit, some people are learning, I really like to think that some people are learning from the context of playing and the aggressive stamp usage that players have, you know, like use a chain, make a chain, whatever it is. So I think that was really cool to see people learning all weekend long, to the point where I'm in Mediana parties now, and people are right on top of the special usage, so they're not using it in a row because I don't think it stacks. They're spreading out the 3 turns. They're saving it for the end in case we don't have time to cast on the final 2 turns. They're doing stuff like deshelling, and there's a lot of really good stuff going on now that we didn't see at the beginning. And even stuff like we have Yermas joining the group to steal time, and sometimes it's really successful, and all the steal time groups I've been in, the ones that have been done properly, have been the highest damage totals I've ever seen. But then there's people that are not doing steal time properly, or they're never moving, so their CT is coming up really quickly and they're taking more turns off of the casters, or maybe they're not syncing their CT up with when they need to use steal time. So it is something that there's actually a lot of thought process that goes into being a steal time player and doing it successfully. So if you're one of those players, then props to you, because you are a massive help in clearing the high level content here. So there's even little things like thinking about where am I going to move. If I move to this position, does that block someone else off from getting a cast? Does that mean that they can't use Blizzaga or their special? Why would I need to move at all, if at all possible? So there's lots of considerations, and there's proactive things you can do, things you can think about that go beyond just what you're going to do. And that was, again, something really cool that I loved about this raid. It kind of pushed us to become better multiplayer players. So again, that makes me excited for future raids. So piecing together my final thoughts on the raids in this game, I think it's a really fun system, and it does require a lot of time invested if you want to kind of go to that next level. If you want to +5 the ring, that's insane. But I think otherwise, I think that's pretty manageable. It's been really fun connecting with my guildmates over this, with my friends doing raid parties and getting on mic. It's been super fun kind of testing everything out. So I'm definitely looking forward to more raids. I think that the rewards are really well spaced out too. I think that, you know, if you're not looking for the ring, and it's not a necessary ring, it's not a ring that you have to be getting, then there's a lot of stuff there for you that you can aim for. The 2 rainbow shards were very generous as well. But then if you are going for the ring, then there's definitely like different levels that you can commit to, and it's I love that they picked how they picked this ring. It's not some OP thing that has just like a boatload of evade on it that's going to be necessary to make the best team. It's the opposite, and that's kind of good. It's giving us a tool to tackle evade teams if we come up against them, but it's not going to be something that's going to make you super overpowered against just like a random everyday team or even a mirror match of a non-evade team. It's just going to be a solid ring that you can build in different ways, and that allows you to, you know, build your equipment more efficiently. Depending on what TMR you want to use, sometimes you really need that solid accessory, and that's something that I've been struggling with as well, having mostly armor TMRs, well, of 2 of 3. So I'm looking into building a crit ring for Ryryu and then an aim ring for Mont, and that's really to get the +5 resistance for Mont, and then the aim is good in case I do come up against some dodgy people. But in general, it's just and it kind of offsets the golden armor a bit as well. So that's neat, but overall, it's not, by no means necessary is this an absolutely must-get ring, in my opinion, of course. So overall, I really did enjoy this raid structure, and I think that if you didn't, then I think approaching it with a different attitude definitely helps. If don't think about what you're missing, think about what you can do, set a goal for what you want to accomplish, and I think that mindset totally makes a big difference in enjoying the raid and doing it at your own pace, because it doesn't have to be, it's not something like these other events where, because you can just leave it on auto, it's something that you can buy up the shop and you can save up a bunch of extra tokens. This is very, very different. You really need to plan what you want to get out of the raid, and if you're busy, then that's all you can do. You can't get the fear of missing out on some of the rewards, because that's just how it is. So yeah, that's gonna be it. It's kind of a long rant about the raid. I hope if you did listen to it all, thank you so much, and sound off in the comments below on your thoughts about the raid, and if you kind of thought that it's something that you were going to be excited to do again, or, you know, if you have some ideas about changing it, then what would those be? And we'll see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching this video. You can show your support with a like and subscribe, and by checking out my Patreon at patreon.com/MysidiaGaming. Until next time, keep it real, Mysidians.